introduce our reviewer, a distinguished personality. You'll get to meet her shortly, but let me just quickly introduce our company, Laterna Ventures, to as many who are connected and do not know much about what we do. Laterna Ventures Limited is a leading literature and lifestyle products importation, distribution, and marketing organization in Nigeria, with a very strong and consistent focus on customer satisfaction. Laterna has grown from a Christian bookstore to one of the more reliable sources for Bibles, business and Christian books, children books, educational toys, gift items, gift bags and wraps, home and office fragrances, music CDs and DVDs, teachings, stationery, and journals. Quite an expansive range of products. The company was established in 1996 and has remained in the forefront of educating Nigerians through the provision of global best-selling books and children educational materials. With access to over 100,000 titles globally and several other products, the company, Laterna, is supplier to other retailers in 33 states of Nigeria, including the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. We currently run a book club for children as well, and as part of our initiative to encourage the culture of reading, we began the Adult Reading Club, which thankfully is a year this month. Our aim is to continually encourage the culture of reading among adults, considering the impact that books contribute to human development. So once again, on behalf of the CEO, Pastor Ebi Morgan, and the Executive Director, Pastor Mrs. Jinka Morgan, my name is Robert Lawson, and I welcome you and hope you will have, I trust you will have a quite a wonderful session. Please, I'd like to hand over now to the moderator, Pastor Benga Folayan. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon and welcome to every one of us. We would like to welcome especially indeed our reviewer today, who is also the author of this particular book, Lady Onyeka Onwenu. It's a pleasure to have you here, and indeed an honor and a privilege. We will be having you formally do the review very shortly, but we will be taking a quick autobiography, a quick biography of yours right now, then a short video from Laterna, and then we will be handing over to you for the review. And so, like I said, it's you're a person of many parts. It's difficult to describe you. In just a singular phrase or from a particular point of view. I know you to be a journalist. I know you to be a music artist. I know you to be a social activist. You are indeed a politician. You are in politics. I don't know whether I can define you as you engaged in politics. I don't know whether that's one of how you would like to be described as a politician, but also I remember that wonderful documentary on Nigeria, an iconic documentary on Nigeria. It says Nigeria, a squandering of riches, which for so many years have defined a lot of the ways that people look at Nigeria, and missed opportunities, corruption, and all that. And so, how does one describe or introduce somebody like you? You also are an X Factor judge, X Factor Nigeria judge, and there's one I haven't even mentioned, which is an actor with a filmography that encompasses quite a number of things. And so It is indeed a pleasure and an honor and a privilege to introduce you today to our audience. And above all this, today our focus is on the specific book, My Father's Daughter. And I must say, not only does it make interesting read, to get to know you a lot better, because it seems you're quite a very personal person you are, but you seem to have revealed quite a lot in the book. And so for me today, I'm really, really looking forward to see what drove this, why this book now, and also for you to review your book so that we can actually have your further insights into the book. And so it is indeed a great pleasure for me today to introduce you, Lady Onyeka Onwenu. As we go along, I might want to also take the journalistic privilege of just saying Onyeka Onwenu. I hope you will accord that to us here today, once in a while, if we are able to do that. Lady Onyeka Onwenu, we indeed want to welcome you very warmly. But like I said, we'll take a quick video now, and then you're going to have 20 minutes to review the book. You're very, very welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, author, broadcaster, politician, music artist, activist, social activist, and a woman of so many, many, many parts, an accomplished Nigerian, Lady Onyeka Onwenu. You're very, very welcome once again. You have the floor, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. I don't know where to start, except to confess that I'm really not an accomplished person. I don't look at myself that way. In fact, when I started writing the book, the idea had been in my head, and I never felt I had enough to write about, or that I had attained anything worthy of presenting to the public. But, God is just a wonderful God. And as I started writing, I began to discover the little things that one may not consider important are really the important things. The relationships you've built over the years, the older people you got to know, what you learned from them, and most especially the foundation of love, which was a gift from God. It was what I had with my father. And that relationship defined me. That love defined me. So you will find that as a thread throughout the book, and indeed the title, My Father's Daughter. Whenever you see a woman who is accomplished, look very closely. You will find that she has had a man, her father, her first love, who made her feel that she could do anything. So I also recognize that there are many of their father's daughters out there. I'd like to say hello to them and welcome them to this reading. And indeed, every father, every person that is here, you were somebody's son or somebody's daughter. Whether the relationship was as you expected it or it wasn't, look back and you will find that there was a seed that was sown in you, that it's probably the thing that is keeping you going. That's what I found in my case. Now, I'm going to let this really flow and not be static about how I ought to present the book. It's a beautiful book. It really is a beautiful book, not because I wrote it, but because it speaks to all of us about so many important things in life. It speaks to us about family. It speaks to us about the many mistakes we've made in life that we've learned from. We keep making, no one is perfect. You keep making mistakes, but you're getting better. So long as you can learn, you can admit your mistakes and learn from them. And that's what happens in this book. Now, choosing what to read to you has been very difficult. I don't know where to start, but we have to start somewhere. And perhaps I will start at the beginning to give you that very foundation that made me who I am today. So I am going to start with, let me start from the very beginning. Let me start from the preface. The story is like a child, and then we can proceed from there. And if you have any idea of what's in the book, just know that I'm able to answer every question. Nothing is off limits at all. I'm able to take any question you have. I may answer it in a way, but if it's too personal, but I will be very honest and straight to the point. If you've taken this time to spend with me, I'm going to be so brutally honest with you. And hopefully it will be an experience that will ginger you to write your own book, to talk to your daughters, to love your children a little more, to say sorry to that person that has hurt you and forgive them, and also ask for forgiveness. So, preface. A story is like a child. A story is born the same way a child is born. It grows, it evolves, it has progression. First, it stays away from the world as it grows hidden inside its mother's womb. Though it is unseen, it is alive as the mother feels movements within her. I have carried the story around for a long time. Like a pregnancy, I have felt the pulse of each recollection and the heartbeat of each memory. Like childbearing, bringing forth the story has been painful. Because I had to look back at things that time had put away. And in looking back, I unearthed some of the pain that had been buried and tucked away in the void of time. Yet the story has to be told. In 1978, I took a writing course at the New School for Social Research in New York as part of my master's degree in media studies. And one of my teachers, an author herself, gave me a book. In it, she wrote, "Onyeka, I look forward to your words. Your style is uniquely anecdotal. You have a voice, and I look forward to reading from you." At that time, I did not think I had much to write, but unknown to me, I was pregnant. If you're reading or listening to this book, you can see that the baby has been born 42 years after my teacher's encouraging words. The newborn baby is a product of being surrounded by adults who shared stories and folklore, Igbo folklore, with me as a child. Now, writing this book has afforded me a panoramic view of my life and a vantage point of self-reflection that would never have been possible. I'm going to skip because there is still so much and go straight to the prologue. Vroom was the deep sound of Papa's car, a white Chevrolet Impala. He stopped the car a few feet away from the fence, and I immediately left what I was doing and went into hiding. Papa had earlier purchased an ear of corn at a church bazaar for a guinea, that's £1 and a shilling. This was a lot of money at the time. Items at church bazaars were bought for much more than they were worth as a way of raising money for projects. I wanted to eat the ear of corn, so I asked Papa, but he was too busy preparing for his outing. He did not respond. I assumed that his silence was permission to eat the corn. So I took it to an older cousin who helped me to roast it, and we both ate it. Between the roasting and the eating, however, it dawned on me that Papa had not given me his express permission, and I became worried. I had taken something without consent. With Papa's return, worry turned into shame, and shame into fear. I hid. Munyanya, which actually means her father's wife, Nene, Papa called in excitement as he opened the door to the house. He called me not by my name, but by the affectionate appellations which only he used, and which has since replaced my birth names. He met silence. On any other occasion, I would have left whatever I was doing to run straight into his open arms at the sound of his voice. He would carry me high in the air and ask how I was doing and if I had eaten. We would then both sit down to eat his meal. Munyanya, he called again. Munyanya, darting frantically around the house looking for me as though in search of a lost gold coin. I heard him but did not respond, as I did not know how to look at him in the face. It soon became obvious that Papa would neither eat his lunch nor sit down till he found me. But unable to bear the tension anymore, I came out of hiding, much to his relief and mine. Why were you hiding? He asked. Papa, I ate your corn, I said, looking down at my feet, with my heart thumping. Papa did not respond, and I stood there, not looking at him. After a while, Papa stooped gently before me in a manner that made our heights appear the same. And then he said, "Promise never to hide from me again, no matter what." Papa raised my chin so we could make eye contact, sealing the agreement. He did not scold me about eating the corn. His concern was that I should not deprive him of my company. We proceeded to eat his food together as though nothing had happened. That day has remained etched in my memory. You see, my father's love introduced me to God's love. God often would forgive us even before we ask, and he would not scold. He would want us to still come to him, for he loves our company. That was what my father's love did for me. If my earthly father could love me as much as Papa did, I then began to imagine what the love of my heavenly Father was like. Whew. Many of my friends who had read this book said to me that at some points in it, they had to pause and take a breather. And some had to step away from the book because it was so personal and it so reminded them of themselves. Now, becoming my father's daughter, how does one start a story of happenings that had not been experienced, things that existed before they were born? You'd have to open your ears to the lips of those who saw the events unfold, listen to things said and those not said, question and prod elders to reach further into their memories. You would also need to look through piles of documents and pictures, conduct research, and arrive at conclusions to know. Now, to know of my first days in this world, I looked through the eyes of the one who knew me first, my mom, my mother. Let me tell you the story as my mother told it. I was born on Tuesday, 29th January 1952, the fourth child of my father, Dixon Kano, known as DK to many, and the fifth child of my mother, Hope Onwenu. My eyes first saw the world in my mother's hometown of Obosi in present-day Anambra State. It was the norm in those days for wives to go to their parents' home when babies were due to be near their caregiver mothers. My father, DK, was a busy school teacher and a politician. He had short teaching spells in Amici and Onitsha in Anambra State, Opare in Delta State, Arondizo, his hometown in Imo State, and Diobu, which is a town on the outskirts of Port Harcourt River State. He eventually taught in Port Harcourt in 1951. He served there as a teacher and in different capacities throughout his career. He was vice principal of Baptist High School, principal of Enitone High School in Port Harcourt. This busy schedule made it expedient for my mom to give birth to me in Obosi, which also had a good maternity home run by Mrs. Ekazo. Hope Onwenu was hoping for a boy. Oh yeah. Boys were and still are very important in Igbo land for connubial safety. I was the third daughter after my brother Richard. But Papa could not be bothered about the boy-girl thing. He welcomed every child as a gift from God and celebrated their birth in the same way. My mother was bothered, though, for in the patriarchal Igbo society, as a wife and mother, she needed as many sons as she could bear. One was good, but a second one was even better. My mother pretended to be happy. But Papa was elated, I was told, and took to me as if I were his soulmate. I was given two names, Onyekachi, which poses a rhetorical question: who is greater than God? And Akuchukwu, which means God's wealth. Whenever I need money, I remind God that my name is wealth, so don't waste time with it. The surname Onwenu means the owner. I imagine that my birth was celebrated just like those of my older siblings. They had our parents' love in several doses. However, according to my mother and relatives, it seemed that upon my arrival, I greedily cornered all of my father's love for myself. Don't know how that happened. Now let me tell you the story as my siblings remembered it. Every morning, Papa stood in front of our house at 35 Morehouse Street, Port Harcourt, to say goodbye to his family. But just before getting into his car, Papa and I would perform our early morning ritual. He would open his right palm with different coins in it. A fathom, the smallest in size and value. The penny, the largest of them all at that time. The sixpence and the shilling. The farthing was insignificant in size, so I never went for it. Rather, I would always choose the penny. It was the largest coin in the collection, and it had a hole in the center, which fascinated me. Whilst making my choice, my siblings would send signals, no, take the other one, trying to convince me to pick the shilling, which had the most value. For a long time, I never heeded their advice. Very stubborn, you may say. But one day I did. And only then did I discover that it could buy infinitely more than the fascinating penny. In 1956, the shilling was a lot of money for a 4-year-old to blow in one day. So every morning with my coin in hand, I was the toast of Morehouse Street, our friendly neighborhood, where everyone knew everyone else and news spread quickly from one ear to the other. I had not started school then, so my days were spent on the playground, cooking imaginary food with small tin cans as my pots and weeds as my vegetable. I had a cousin named Goddy. He was 10 years older than me, and he would let me slap him. Said, "Nne, slap me." "Oh, I like it when you slap me." Anytime I had my shilling, just so he could help me spend it. My sister Ijoma would offer to give me a piggyback ride to the corner, the street corner where granuts, Bananas and sweets were sold. All the kids in the neighborhood knew about this ritual and would join the merry procession. The target, of course, was my precious coin. Once it was spent, everyone dispersed and normalcy returned. Now, this abandonment often elicited an outcry from me, particularly as I was always left with precious little of the goodies purchased with my own money. Whenever I raised the alarm, all concerned would have to take the best option open to them. They would leave the vicinity immediately, the reason being that Papa hated to hear me cry, and he took no prisoners. You would think that since this experience was a regular occurrence, anytime my father was around, I would learn to see people for the freeloaders they were. They were only interested in my shilling and its purchasing power, but I never learned. It did not matter because I knew that as long as I had Papa, I would have my regular supply of shillings and everything else that it attracted. From my experience, I learned my first two lessons in life that my father tried to teach me in his patient and loving way. The first lesson was that not all that glitters or fascinates, in my case, is gold. The second was that moments in the spotlight are fleeting. In the evenings, Morehouse Street became a playground. The street and sidewalks were turned into a football pitch and tracks were drawn for racing. I was not great at these competitions. Nevertheless, everybody had to cheer me on. My siblings happily applauded me as the fastest kid on the block, even if I were only capable of leading from the back. They would shout, "Onyeka, wake up! Onyeka, wake up! Onyeka, wake up!" while others would run ahead of me. If not, I would collapse to the ground, refusing to complete the race. I never stood a chance of winning. If I did not hear the cheering, I felt like the attention had moved from me, and I didn't like that. I should have told them what I was going to be in the in the show business. Now, a searing cry would follow, and my father would, in a twinkle of an eye, appear in the playground to investigate. Everyone would again take to their heels. I was, well, you could say an oppressor of sorts, an irredeemable prima donna. I've often wondered what would have become of me had my father lived longer and continued loving me to smithereens the way he did for the first 4 years of my life. However, a story comes to mind, told by others, of an event that happened when I was 2.5 years old. It tells me that, yes, my father would have continued with his indulgent treatment of me, but that he would have drawn the line where necessary. As a child, I was slow in walking. That's true. I got around by moving my buttocks on the floor. And one day, Papa just got fed up with my inability to make even the slightest attempt to crawl, like most babies, let alone walk. He made a harsh comment in Igbo. In Arondizogu Igbo, "Ndihi na chichigari nani," which means, "Why are you wallowing on the floor like this?" I did not understand a word of what Papa said, but I felt the sharpness of his remark. I was told that I simply rose to my feet while at the playground the next day, and I began to walk, just like that. It was our neighbor, our dear neighbor, Mama Nne, Mrs. Okaro, who first saw me walking and raised a happy alarm. She also gave me a penny for my springing that delightful surprise. Now, could that have led to my fascination with the penny, the huge coin with a hole in the middle and which had transversing triangles like the Star of David? Probably. Remarkably, I never crawled. I went from shifting around on the floor to walking on my own simply because of a rebuke from Papa. Now, while my father, D.K. Onwenu, was not the type of parent to fight his children's battles when they were at fault, he seemed to have made an exception with me. He did so repeatedly and without apology. According to my brother, the only time that he intervened for any other child of his was when the school janitor slapped him without reason. My brother had slumped and had to be revived. Encouraged by his classmates, he ran home and reported the matter to my father. Papa arrived at the school, St. Cyprian's School, Port Harcourt, with his police orderly, which he was entitled to as a legislator, to the terror of the school principal and the offending janitor, who by this time was shaking like a leaf. With full apologies and assurances that such would not repeat itself, my father let the matter rest. Papa had no objections to his children being disciplined with a whip if they deserved it, but the heavy-handed slap from a much older and bigger man was uncalled for. I would want to move forward a little bit because what I would like to do is to give you a taste. Oh yeah, this before I leave this particular place, there was things that my father and I shared, games that we shared, really didn't make any meaning, any sense, but to us, it did. There was a call and response game that we played. It was a word play that twisted our tongues and tested our patience. And Papa would start, Onyeka chibogodom bogodom bum. Good enough. I would repeat, Papa bogodom bogodom bum. And this will go on until he makes it a bit more complicated, like Onyeka chibogodom bum bum bum. Bogodom bum 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 bum. Something like that. I couldn't follow, so the next thing is to cry. And Papa would bring out sweets or biscuits just to compensate me. He was teaching in everything that he did, even with the games. And he was loving me through it all. And as I grew older and that love was no longer there, the point was that for the first 4 years and 10 months of my life, I had it. And I had so much, it never left. I was the one who would remind my family of some of the things that my father and I used to do. And the fact that, just before he goes to bed, I would have landed on his bed and, taken position. Then when he comes to bed, I will be moved to the children's bedroom. In the middle of the night, guess what? As soon as I open the door, this guy was working very hard and he put up with that. He also had a navel that was, inverted. And listen, with granites and stones, I would just measure to see how many this hole could take. And this guy, a politician and a teacher, and in those days, you kept your day job if you were a politician. You weren't just a politician. And he was also raising other people's children and mentoring other people. He put up with it. I never once remembered him complaining about me bossing around. I did. Oh my goodness. What a father. As if he knew that he was not going to stay long. I'm not going to read to you the part where he died. I'm not going to do that. You read it for yourself. But it was and it was the end of my time. But guess what? He had given me so much love for the first years of my life. Love that was sufficient to see me into adulthood and into who I am. That's my father. Do you feel me? That's why I call the book My Father's Home. Now, my mother and I, we had issues because all the attention was as soon as they walked into the house, all the attention. But we acknowledged each other that we had these issues. And I called my mom, my mate with the 3 toes. She never agreed with anything I said. But guess what? I became my father to her. I became her husband as well as her mate. If anything was going wrong in the family, she would just call me to take over and say, you have to deal with this. And indeed, I would deal with it. And she had one son who was precious to her. But for her, I was the closest to my father. And she knew that I loved my father so much that I had to take care of his family and I had to take care of her. And I did that. For the last 10 years of her life, Uche did get my mom very well. I loved her so much. She lived with me and I was her principal caregiver. And I learned so much from this book. You find all that in the book. You also find about her last days and how she needed my permission. She was living with me in Lagos, but she went to overseas because her sister had come back from visiting her children in the US, and both sisters were very close. And she was there for 10 months before she decided she wanted to come back to Lagos. She fell ill. The doctors would not move her. And I came into the hospital. She had been unconscious, but she could smell me from a mile away. And as soon as I was coming, she was moving. She was vibrant. She was herself again. And as I walked in, she, without looking, she said, "Oh, yeah." Meaning, who is that? And I said, "Oh," because she already knew. And we had a party. We drank her favorite drink, but I brought a bottle of Irish cream, and brought some apples and all the things that she liked. And her hair hadn't been made, so I plaited her hair. And I kissed her and I held her. My mother was not a very affectionate person. That's her. We all knew that. It didn't mean she didn't love you. But that day, I hugged her. I held her. I cradled her. And when she saw me after 10 months, she hadn't seen me. She frowned her face like, as if, "Can you see that I'm going?" I said, "Hey, none of that." We had talked about death before when she had a stroke a few years earlier, and I had explained to her what it was about, and she got born again. And I said, "None of that. I am here. Have I ever made a promise to you that I didn't keep?" She shook her head no. I said, "So you know, everything that I've promised you will be taken care of. Everything." And she relaxed, and we had a party. And we sang, "Chukubiko gozie, ochie dike mama, na gozie nebo, ochie dike nem." This was a song she wrote for her own mother, and which I recorded, and I paid her for her copyright. And she had to come and record her own voice. It was spoken word. I mean, she was rapping before kids began to rap. She did the spoken word part of it. And those were some of the things that she left me. I was very fortunate to have had these two wonderful parents. And sometimes I didn't quite appreciate my mother's, I thought she was high-handed. Come back at home at certain times, you do this, you do that, you do that, I thought, this woman would never let go. Come on, let me enjoy myself. Oh no. But when I grew up, I thanked her for the way she had raised me with discipline. Because yes, I had my father's charms and his a certain attitude of brilliance that he gave all of his children. But it was my mother's discipline that saw me through, that I could hold myself together in a society that does not quite value women as it should. My mother was a liberated woman, and my father too was a liberated man. He allowed her; she could do anything she wanted. She was the one who, she had more money than he did, and he often borrowed from her, never paid back. You know, women, you know how it is now. And you're not going to mention that money again. The day you mention it, he will refuse to eat your food, and maybe you'll have to go and buy a cow, a goat or a chicken to cook for him specially, and kneel down and say, "I'm sorry, I even raised it." But they had a wonderful relationship. My mother was very good looking. My father too had his chance, and my mother was always worried about the women. So actually, now I'm telling you the book, I'm not even reading it. There was one instance when, he comes late after his political meetings. So having become a politician, I know what it entails. And that day, my mother said, "No way." She had served his food. She was so angry, and she just took the tray of food and threw it on the floor. Okay. My father got up, walked away, and went to bed. The following day, he would not eat her food. He stepped into the kitchen. He came back a little earlier, stepped into the kitchen and made jollof rice like we had never had before. Because he used up everything in the kitchen, my friend. And so when they made up, we thought, oh no, jollof rice is gone. Can you guys fight again so we can go back to Papa's jollof rice? But then another time, my mother decided that I want to know what you do when you say you go to those political meetings. Oh, yeah, come in. She went into the car with him. It was hammer time, and it was cold. And we made sure that all the windows were down. My mother was freezing. He stopped at every car. Oh, Mr. Keke. Oh, now let me tell you about the meeting we had. Ah, Mr. Okoye. Yes, indeed. You had a question for me. Now let me give you the. And this went on, and then he went into the real meeting. My mother just had to be watching all this. Good for her. Took her home very late, and the following day said, Echo, which is what he called her, Hope Onwenu. Echo, Ngba, Ulu, let's go. Mother said, no, I'm not going anywhere. So the point had been sufficiently made. And my mother called her husband, Onyenkuzi, the teacher. For me, it was just Papa, my lovely, wonderful Papa. How many more minutes do I have? Because we could go on and on, can't we? All right.
I must say that this is a book club with a difference in the sense that we would usually have a review. It is both a review.
I'm having difficulty hearing you.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's the earpiece. Maybe.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was saying that today we're having a book club with a difference in the sense that traditionally we would just have a review of the book. But today there is indeed both a review and a book reading.
At the same time?
Yes. And I understand that there is also a physical book signing at Laterna after we end here. So today is different. And this is a review with a difference. I could only expect that from one who is a mix of an actor and a music artist, a broadcaster. And so we've had a reading in another way. We've had a song. We can feel the passion. It's almost as if we were there after the labor when you came into the world. We can see and sense and hear and feel your Father's love shining through. I had a question that I was going to ask, which you also have answered. I'm going to tell you what that question is. But it is usual that you have just about 20 minutes. We really have exhausted that. Those 20 minutes are gone over, and it didn't sound.
We've exhausted the reading time, have we?
We exhausted the 20 minutes time that we.
Oh no! I wanted to read the Civil War because I called the drums of war. How because I can liken it to what is happening now. I'm praying very hard that we don't get into that war. I think that would resonate with people. But believe me, if I just, not to take words out of your mouth, sir, but just to give our listeners an idea of what this book covers, the whole gamut. It goes through the war, it goes through my political life. You have things like the war years, the drums of war, the great displacement to R&Ds of where I learned to grow and make Gary. listen, you cannot make better gari than me. I'll teach you the process. And I'm a farmer and a gardener. And then the tougher is the end of a thing. The whole war situation was, I lost my innocence in the sense that my childhood was taken away from me. And I became a nurse's aide with just 2 weeks training and working in a military hospital, working with kwashiorkor children, feeding them, and babies dying in my arms. Those are experiences that I never want us to go through again. And then after the war, coming to Lagos and then going to America, studying at Wellesley College, the first Bryn Mawr school in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania, the Baldwin School, and then Wellesley, which is a very good school. I didn't know it at the time, it was a privilege to attend a school that Hillary Clinton and Madeleine Albright had graduated from. And that was my background. Then went to the UN. You'll hear about my UN years, working with Kofi Annan, who was a mentor of sorts. And then coming back to Nigeria, my music, the NTA bit, my starting as a broadcaster. You hear me talking about the making of Spundering of Riches. You hear about my marriage. Yeah, I was married. You didn't know that, did you? Yes, and how it ended. I talk about my children and the things I learned from married life. I also fell in love when I was 13 years old. Yes, very, very interesting story. It's called By Serendipity. It's just God. It wasn't the type of love where you were, sleeping with the person, but we were in love. And I guess we will always be. We're good friends. We often meet up not of our own volition, very often by accident. And this person had given so much in my life as encouragement. He knew everything. He saw everything I was going to do, even before I knew it myself. So there's that one. And then politics. Oh my goodness. Working at the National Center for Women Development, and then the people that I write about, my friends. Encounters. Gani Fawemi, Alhaji Shehu Shagari, Chief Sam Mbakwe, Ken Saro-Wiwa, Margaret Orepusi. I could go on and on. Kofi Annan, I write about them. Oh my goodness, there's so much in this book, and still so much I haven't written. And then I ask, whose life is it anyway? How I came to Christ and gave my life. It's very interesting. Pastor Bimbo Odukoya led me to the Lord. Then there's serendipity, there's my mother going home. No time. So you got to buy the book.
Yep. I know that the physical reading is still going to go on after this, but I also like to crave the indulgence of our audience, because usually this is about an hour, so we will be busting that.
I need to raise the volume. I'm not hearing you very well still.
Wow. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Okay, that's fine.
I was saying that usually this is for an hour, but we will bust that a bit today, even though I know that there is still a physical reading that is going to go on there. But just to give a little bit of experience to the virtual audience, I'm just craving the indulgence of the audience that we will go a bit over the 1 hour today, because I believe there's still a lot that we can get. For me, the book, yes, is about celebration of your father. It's about family. It's about, but it's also a developmental book. It is a developmental book. It is about lessons that so many people could learn at the personal level, at the family level, even in terms of the country level, like you are speaking to right now, and all the many lessons that a global person in a global village that we are right now could pick up, and it's interesting. And so usually we give room for questions from the audience here, but I would like to read a few of the comments that have already been made by some of our participants here. And I do hope that you can hear me very well now. Joy says, proud Igbo daughter you are, Onyeka. I hope I pronounced that. Very well. Then Coxon said, I am already feeling a sense of affinity with Stallion. I know that that's one of your the pet names that some people have given you. Her descriptions are so vivid because I grew up at the end of Creek Road, which was a throw from to Morehouse.
Yes.
In fact, we used to play football every evening at Baptist High School at Morehouse.
Yes.
And also State Primary School, Churchill Road, adjoining Morehouse. I attended GSS Burikiri, and we used to fight with Enitonia High School. Mention of St. Cyprian is also apt. Thank you, Onyeka, for being a Port Harcourt girl through and through. So I'm sure that brought some resonance with you also, isn't it? So that's one comment. Cecilia says, what an awesome relationship Mrs. Onyeka Onwenu had with her father. The book, My Father's Daughter, is a story of strength, determination, and integrity. It is a must read. Akudo says, I am so loving Ms. Onwenu's narration. I feel like I experienced her childhood with her. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Annette says, I didn't know the Stallion is a Port Harcourt girl like I am. Well, there are some Port Harcourt people here today. I can relate to being a daddy's girl. I was one myself. It's amazing because it still hurts so much at losing my dad. That's one of the questions I was going to ask you anyway. You feel an indescribable emptiness. Thank you for sharing. Can't wait to read the book. The books are available at Laterna, 12B 13 Okuawo Street in Victoria Land. The price of volume 1 is 6,000 naira. Volume 2 is 12,000 naira. But you can also order online at www.laternabooks.com. Abolaji says, I'm so enthralled. Efe says, awesome time, ma. Annette says, amazing narration. Thank you, ma'am, for sharing. EJA says, very interesting. Really honored to be here. Thank you for the wonderful time we've had. Richard says, I like this. That's just it. Joy says, the session today is very reminiscent to me. I grew up also in the neighborhood of Enitonia and GSS Brooklyn. Paula says, awesome. Thank you so much, Stallion. You transported me to your earlier years and how the seed of integrity, hard work, and loving nature got nurtured. Misan says, Onyeka, I want you to say that you are a Nigerian woman I admire. Thank you for writing this book. Well done. Bola Tito says, thank you so much for sharing and serving, ma. You are a blessing to Nigeria. EJ is asking any virtual copies. Some want soft copies. And Osariame says, absolutely interesting. I have thoroughly enjoyed the narration. Very vivid. Thank you for sharing your life experiences. I'm so reminded of my dad, as I also had a special relationship with him, like Onyeka Onwenu has. Then Dio, I think I'll stop. I'll stop after Dio. Dio says,
thank you.
Thanks for the national song you sang. It's still a classic. And this is Pastor Dio in Tanzania. That just shows you what the audience, how connected you have been with the audience today. But I would say it's not too surprising with the education, with the experiences, and and all the training that you have. So it's very wonderful, wonderful way today. Usually, we will have questions from the audience rather than questions today. Most of what I've seen there are actually comments. But like I said, I was going to ask you that this book says, "My father's daughter." This book says, "My father's daughter." But he left tragically when you were just before 5. And it's amazing that it is the mother who did most of the practical work.
Yes.
And so for you, what is it that fathers should do for their daughters to leave a lasting legacy? And what should mothers also do for their daughters? Two questions fundamental to me. What should they be doing? I mean,
just love your kids. Get to know them, treat them well, and treat them better than well. Treat them in a way that the father is my first love, really, is the first man that you meet and love. And, with that kind of love, no man gonna try and mess you up, because, you can go back in your mind, hey, my father treated me well, so you can't come here to treat me badly. So it gives you, and it frames in your mind an image of yourself as worthy of being loved. Also live a good life. Live a life, you mentioned the word integrity. Those two people had integrity, my mother and my father. So if I try to step out of line, I would remember the kind of lives that they lived. My mother was very working. She was only 37 when my father died, and she never remarried. And she raised not just her children, she raised her husband's nieces and nephews, and her own as well. She's just an incredible woman. And so when I think of her, when I'm doing something and somebody is offering me a corner way of the, nah, not gonna happen. No, I know where I'm from. And one day, when I left the National Center for Women Development, I left with just 10,000. I don't even think I had 10,000 in my account. I did the kind of service where I was putting my own money to get things done. And then that was at the point my two boys decided they were coming back to Nigeria. So things were a little bit challenging. One day I said, I went to government and I spent my own money. Can you imagine? I said, maybe I should have been like everybody else and find ways to make money. And my children, both of them at the same time, we would have disowned you. And I smiled. I said, okay, I've done my job. If they could say that to me, I've done my job. I've raised them in a way that they can see what integrity means and the importance of that sense of integrity in everything that you do. I say, I rest my case. Thank you, Lord. I've done a good job.
Wow.
So I think I answered both questions
yes.
at the same time.
Yes, that's very, very true. Okay. So many other questions. I don't know whether there's anybody else who has a question or two. You can put it in the chat so that we can just still have a question. But I want to say that on a personal note, a lot of this resonates with me. I lost my dad when I was 6. My mom was 38 years. She had 6 children. She never remarried.
Oh.
I can relate with quite a number of the things that you're saying here. But I also wanted to ask, and I know things are changing in Igbo land, but the place of women, particularly in terms of inheritance, the place of women, the culture, particularly inheritance and things like that. Do you want to speak to that very, very quickly and what you think changed?
That was a painful one. My mother saw it coming, and so she herself had bought land. She was the custodian of the estate, but when she passed, she knew it would go to her only son. Everybody accepted that. But she had bought this wonderful piece of land that was situated near the family home. And one day she called my brother and I, who were both all in the village, and said, I'm going to sell this piece of land to Onyeka. It's not your father's land, it's my personal land. But I could have given it to her because of all that she had done for this family. But I'm going to sell it for profit so that nobody is going to come around and say, oh, you gave Onyeka. And so she sold it for me for good profit, and I paid her off. But as soon as my mother was gone, I was driven from that land and from every other piece of land that I bought with my own money, with the excuse that women don't own land, not here. And I did what my mother would have advised me to do. I walked away. I left it all and walked away. But unfortunately for me, my brother died just 6 months after we buried my mom. We should have known. He was very close to her. He passed away in his sleep. And guess what? I became the custodian of the DK Onwenu estate to administer it, not to inherit my father's property. I'm going to maintain that because I bought enough of my own. I don't need to take any. It's just to make sure that the grandchildren who are entitled, that they do, including the women amongst them, just to make sure that everybody has a piece of that inheritance, that we no longer discriminate and say, because you're a woman, you cannot inherit. That's such a bad, it's terrible, because the woman feels like she's not really a part of the family. She's just, but when it comes to carrying the burden of looking after our parents, of looking after the family, it falls on the women, as it fell on me, even while my brother, who was much older, was 8 years older, while he was still around, I was still the one who took care of the family. So it is very painful, but we have a Supreme Court judgment on it, which came out about 3 years ago, that women in Igbo land are entitled to inherit property from their parents. So hopefully, it's not going to change overnight, but hopefully with people like me talking about it, and that was why I chose to write about it, this will all begin to change. Now, I want to go back very quickly to what you said, very, very quickly, to say something about my mom that I was very grateful for. I never saw uncle this, uncle that. I said she was 37 when my father. I never saw uncle this, uncle that, who were not real uncles in our house. My mother was a disciplined woman. I carried that discipline in my life, raising my boys and a nephew on my own. They never saw an uncle who was not an uncle. That's the way that I would put it. My mother gave me that, and I gave it to my children.
Right. Thank you so much. We need to round off shortly, but there's a question there. EJ says, a question, please. But you were only less than 3. No, she was about over 4 when your father passed on. How could you have left the kind of strong legacy you recall so vividly? Are you sure you're not missing him, missing not having him instead? Could you hear me?
Not very well at the beginning.
I'll repeat that.
Okay.
But you were only less than 3. And I said...
No. I was 4 years and 10 months.
10 months.
Almost 5.
Yeah. When your father passed on, how could he have left the kind of strong legacy you recall so vividly? Are you sure you're not missing not having him instead? You're not missing not having him.
I've missed him from till now. I'm missing him. Hey, do you need to ask?
Yeah.
I'm missing him.
Missing him every day.
Every day. Every day. But now I have a smile on my face when I think about him. I have and he did leave a legacy that, not just for me, but for anyone who knew him. He was deputy mayor of Port Harcourt. He was principal of the first black principal of Baptist High School, then went over to Enitonia High School, re-established the school. My father was a maverick. So when people meet, you're the daughter of DK, when they start telling me those he trained, those he took care of, those he helped. So it still goes on and on and on. So I hear stories, but there are things that I remember that even I had to remind my family, this is what he was like. Wow. And my mother would confirm. You never forget a love like that. someone for whom you could do no wrong. The only wrong thing I did was, walking around, not walking early. That was the only thing he got upset with. And I sensed it. Every other thing, I could do anything and get away with it. How many people do you have in your life with whom you can be yourself and get away with anything? So long as, you know what I mean with get away with anything. So he's not to be forgotten. And my children know about him because I talk about him all the time. My second son, we believe, it was my brother walking into the room in hospital when he was when he was born, looked at him and said, "Oh, you brought back our father." He so reminds us of the man, and he too is very quick and fast, and I had to slow him down. Hey, you finished school too early. Yeah, slow down. Because I'm thinking, let him not go and do this quick thing and then go slow down, please. So we do have we have people who are very much like him in the family, and they often remind us of him.
So the greatest legacy indeed is love. Just love people, love your family,
it was love
your children,
love
your
is great.
wife, and be kind. Okay. Well, the last request that is in the chat here says, as a parting gift, can you sing any tune from your classic song? Not from me, it's on the chat. It says, as a parting gift, can you sing?
Now everybody has to join in singing it. Okay. That's the thing. Okay? It's a song we all know. One love, keep us together. We really need that love right now. And we need to keep Nigeria in our prayers. That we learn to accommodate and love one another. Truly, with the love of the Lord. That's what one love is about. It's God's love. We all have it from Him. We should share it with one another. And it says, don't be sad.
No, one moment before you sing, can everybody just unmute, since you want us all to sing with you? Ask everybody to unmute and then sing with you, isn't it?
Yes, that's it. That's the idea.
Wherever you are, if you can unmute now, and you will be singing with Onyeka Onwenu.
I'm unmuted myself.
All right, go ahead, ma'am.
Well, I should tell them.
Everyone ready?
Yes, we're ready.
And don't worry about how your voice, every voice is beautiful, okay?
Yes,
every one of us. Okay.
Thank you.
Don't be sad, understand. Everybody has a day when the sun stays away. Yeah. Take heart in a new tomorrow. A little more love this way makes a brighter day. Yeah. Never need worry. Let one love set you free. Come on, sing it now. One love keep us together. Living in a world struggle for staying alive. One love keep us together. In a world struggle for staying, you and I will live as one. Live as one, my darling. You and I, my baby. You and I will live as one. I love you. You're the best. Hands together for yourselves, my people. Oh, what a lovely afternoon experience.
Yes, I'm glad I made it today. I'm so glad.
Thank you so much.
God bless you and keep you in love with Him. And He is always in love with you. Don't you ever forget that. No matter what it is you're going through, God's love never changes. And He will bring you, not only bring you out of it, you are actually going to starve. You're going to cry. You're going to get better. You're going to discover talent you didn't know you had.
Is this
Well with
estate?
It's well with us.
Can all mute now?
Yeah, is this one?
A minute or two.
Don't enter. It's because you go the other way.
That's what I thought too.
Now, thank you. On that note, okay, we would like to thank Lady Onyeka Onwenu for that wonderful, wonderful, wonderful session. And as we round off, we would like to inform everyone that Laterna Book Club will be one in July. And so on the 8th of July, we will be having a special Laterna Book Club where we will have most of the past 24 book reviewers and also a lot of feedback from a few attendees. There will also be special discounts to individuals and groups. Please do not miss that, that date. Diarize it, July 8th, and the Lord be with you. Thank you all very much to everybody who has been here, to Onyeka Onwenu, and to every person who has attended today. We'll see you again. Thank you so much. And bye for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Or enthusiast.
Bye.
You need genuine and unique lifestyle products? Or are you looking for a fine contemporary and a wide range of unique gifts for children and adults? Laterna is your go-to place for genuine and contemporary books and lifestyle products for wholesale and retail customers. We stock business books on management, leadership, financial success, entrepreneurship, personal development, and so much more. We carry children's fiction, non-fiction, educational books, CDs, and DVDs. We also stock Christian books on various themes, such as family life and parenting, church life and growth, spirit-filled living, love, sex, and marriage, to mention but a few. Laterna carries life and style books such as baby and child care, beauty and style, and hobbies. We also carry adult, children, and teenagers' Bibles, educational toys, framed art, gifts, greeting cards, home and office fragrances, music CDs and DVDs, stationery, teachings, and lots more. Our stores are located at 12B and 13 Okoawo Street, Victoria Island, Lagos. You can also shop online at www.laternabooks.com. Laterna, your lifestyle hub for book lovers. For inquiries, call 0803-301-4462, 0906-0002046 or 7. Chat with us via WhatsApp on 0803-301-4462. You may also reach us on social media via Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Laterna Books and Laterna Ventures.